He was more than just a king. He was a very rich man, more than anyone could imagine. His name was Musa, and he was the king of the Mali Empire in West Africa in the 14th century. He is remembered today as the wealthiest person to have ever lived. Some estimates today say that he is worth more than 400 billion. That's more than any billionaire who is still alive. And he wasn't just rich in money. He had gold, land, power, and the ability to change the world around him. Musa was born at a time when West Africa was rich but not very well known outside of the region. The Mali Empire had a lot of resources at its disposal. There was gold everywhere. The empire was linked to far-off places by trade routes. These paths were used to move salt, ivory, and other valuable goods. And through it all, the people of Mali built cities, markets, and schools that were as good as anything else at the time. We don't know what year he was born. Some documents point to the late 13th century. He took over in 1312. The empire was already strong when he became king. Musa didn't just get a kingdom, though. He got a chance. He was given responsibility, and he knew how important both were. He didn't rise up all of a sudden. He did it on purpose. Mali was powerful because it controlled resources. Gold was especially important. At that time, West Africa was the source of half of the world's known gold. That gave the empire a lot of power. Every caravan, trade deal, and trip through the desert made it richer. Musa was at the center of it all. Musa used wealth in ways that still have an impact today, but wealth alone doesn't make history. He knew how important it was to be seen, unlike many other rulers who kept their wealth hidden. He went places, he gave out money, and he made sure everyone knew Mali was strong. Musa was interested in more than just getting things when he was young. He learned about religion, law, and running a business. Islam was at the center of his life and shaped how he made decisions and interacted with others. He built mosques and helped scholars. Mali's cities were not only important for business, but also for culture. Timbuktu, in particular, became a great place to learn. During his time as king, libraries, schools, and scholars thrived. But his own story was more than just planning and strategy. Musa was a person. He had to deal with problems and threats from both inside and outside the empire. He had to deal with enemies, possible uprisings, and the harsh conditions of the desert. But he was careful and thought things through. People thought about their choices instead of acting on them. Those choices changed the course of an empire and, in many ways, the story of wealth itself. What happened next was set by Musa's early rule. He made Mali's borders bigger, which made trade routes safer and the area more stable. He had already built a reputation as a wise and powerful ruler by the time he was ready to go on the trip that would make him famous beyond Africa. His name meant something in every city and market that was part of his empire. This base is very important. It's easy to miss what happened next if you don't know about Musa's early life and rise to power. The wealth he brought with him, the kindness he showed, and the effects he had on trade and culture around the world all came from the choices and systems he made early on. And so, when he went on the pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324, he wasn't just going as a religious man. He was on a journey to show the world how powerful and rich Mali was, and to show the world how a ruler could use wealth to change things. Musa made a choice in 1324 that would change history forever. He set out on a pilgrimage to Mecca, which is something that every devout Muslim wanted to do. But Musa's pilgrimage was different from all the others. He didn't go alone or in a modest way. He went on trips with tens of thousands of other people. There was a huge group of soldiers, servants, scholars, and attendants. Camels carried gold, and the roads turned into a parade of riches moving through the desert. People say he carried hundreds of kilograms of gold, not coins hidden in a chest, but gold in its natural shiny state, and he gave it away without hesitation, for the poor, for those in need, to merchants along the way. Cities he passed through were shocked by the sudden wealth. Cairo, one of the most important cities in the Middle Ages, felt it the most. Musa's kindness was so great that it made gold worth less. Prices went down, markets were messed up, and the local economy had a hard time adjusting. One man, going through a city, redistributing wealth on a scale that changed the whole economy. People remember Musa's pilgrimage not only for its religious meaning, but also for its effect on the economy. People around him saw how big his empire's resources were. The stories spread far beyond the cities he went to. People who traded told stories about the king who could give away gold and not even notice it. Scholars wrote about the journey's organization, discipline, and huge size. Musa didn't just do things at random. They showed that they really understood power and influence. Having money doesn't make you respected. What you do with it does. Musa showed how powerful Mali was by giving away gold and being generous. He made himself known, not by taking over, but by being seen. People around the world started to see Mali as a place of wealth and stability. Musa didn't forget his spiritual duties along the way. The pilgrimage was a true act of faith, but it also gave people a chance to lead. Every city he went to and every market he passed had a ruler who was both devoted and powerful. It wasn't just about giving money. It was also about what that money meant. In Musa's hands, gold stood for order, culture, and power. But Musa was careful. He had to plan ahead because of how generous he was. He didn't use up all of the resources in his empire. He figured out how much to give so that Mali's economy stayed strong. He showed a principle that many modern leaders forget. Using money is most helpful when it makes the system it comes from stronger instead of weaker. He was on his pilgrimage for months. He built buildings, helped scholars, and made trade easier along the way. Each stop made Mali's name stronger. Every act of kindness showed the world that this empire was rich, well-organized, and long-lasting. And by the time Musa got to Mecca, the stories of his trip had already spread faster than he had. He became a living example of wisdom and plenty. His entourage was also a reflection of Mali's social structure. His group included scholars, clerics, and people who worked for the government. They weren't just there to look good. They were advisors, kept records, and sent messages. Musa knew that money alone could not keep power. Knowledge, culture, and organization were all equally important. He had a lot of these, along with the gold. When he got back to Mali, his pilgrimage had made his name live on. People thought his empire was a place where people could trade, learn, and have fun. Timbuktu, which was already an important city, became known around the world. Scholars from all over Africa and the Mediterranean wanted to use its libraries. Merchants knew that Mali was a good place to do business and make money. People all over West Africa remembered the king who gave freely but still kept things under control. We can learn something important about money from Musa's journey. Having it is not enough. The way it is shared, shown, and handled affects how it works. Musa didn't keep gold just to show off. He used it to show off his power, gain influence, and help people move forward. That's why, hundreds of years later, people remember him not just as a rich man, but also as a leader who changed things. There were also small, long-term effects of the pilgrimage. Musa caused economic ripples by bringing wealth to cities all over North Africa. Trade networks changed, merchants took new routes, and cultural exchange grew stronger. Mali had an impact on places outside of its own borders. Musa turned what he carried in gold into lasting effects: cities, trade, education, and fame around the world. And even today, the lessons are still useful. Wealth can leave behind legacies that last longer than a person's lifetime if it is used wisely and with foresight. Mansa Musa's pilgrimage shows that being rich is not the only thing that makes someone great. History is defined by how we use them on people, ideas, and systems. Mansa Musa didn't come back to Mali quietly. He came back as a king whose name had spread far beyond the empire. Stories about his pilgrimage had spread to North Africa, the Mediterranean, and even Europe. People talked about a king who could give away gold and still be rich, a king who ruled an empire where wealth, trade, and knowledge all thrived. But Musa wasn't interested in his own fame. He focused on his empire, making sure that Mali stayed a beacon of wealth and strengthening what he already had. He put a lot of money into cities like Gao and Timbuktu. These places weren't just for trade. They turned into places where people could learn, enjoy culture, and see beautiful buildings. They built schools and libraries. Scholars and teachers from all over Africa and the Mediterranean were welcome. Musa knew that money is only good for a short time if it doesn't make something last. Under Musa's rule, Timbuktu changed. It was called the City of 333 Mosques and many other places to learn. People gathered, read, and copied manuscripts. People shared what they knew about religion, math, astronomy, medicine, and literature. The city drew in scholars who would study and teach for many years. Musa's gold paid for this growth, but his vision made it happen. He knew that creating a culture of learning would make Mali's place in history much more important than any treasure. His wealth and ambition were also shown in his architecture. Gold-plated and made by the best craftsmen, grand mosques were built. These buildings weren't just places of worship. They were also signs of Mali's strength, stability, and sophistication. They showed that money can be used to control people, make them feel awe, and change society. At the time, Mali was one of the most advanced places in the world because of Musa's investments. Musa didn't just care about Timbuktu. His vision helped other cities and towns as well. Trade routes were made safer and bigger. The markets grew. Gold and salt moved quickly. Mali became a center for trade, ideas, and wealth. The empire was stronger, better organized, and more respected than it had ever been. His effect went far beyond economics. Musa's legacy affected many generations because he supported education and culture. Scholars who studied under him went on to teach, write, and learn more. Libraries kept manuscripts that might have been lost in other places. Trade and learning went hand in hand, and Mali became known around the world as a place where money and knowledge lived together. Musa's life teaches us that being rich doesn't make you great. How it is used does. He could have saved up gold, built palaces for himself, and lived alone. But he went a different way. He put money into society. He made systems that lasted longer than he did. He also made the world see Mali as a place of culture and new ideas. It's still hard to understand how big his accomplishments were. When you take inflation into account, his wealth was much greater than that of today's billionaires, like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. But you can't really measure his worth in dollars. It is in the cities he made stronger, the scholars he helped, the trade he made easier, and the cultural legacy he left behind. Musa's story also teaches us something about how to be a good leader. A ruler is not just someone who has power over armies or money. A ruler changes people's lives, builds systems that last, and makes history. Musa had faith, a plan, a big heart, and the ability to see the future. He knew that having power without a goal is a waste. He turned power into gold and then into change that would last. And there are lessons we can use today. Musa shows that you need to have a plan to manage your money. Having or making money isn't enough. The way we spend our time, money, and energy can have effects that last long after we're gone. Giving strategically, investing in knowledge, and helping communities all make any amount of money go further. History also teaches us to look at things from different angles. A lot of people think of Africa in terms of its colonial struggles or its poverty. Musa's Mali goes against those stories. It shows a time when Africa's leaders, culture, and wealth were as strong as those in the world's most powerful areas. It reminds us of how much Africa has done for history, and how knowing these things changes how we think about wealth and power. Musa's pilgrimage, his rule, and his investments show that wealth isn't just for him. It has an effect on society. It affects economies, schools, cultures, and even how people see whole areas. His life makes you think, what does it mean to be really rich? How can resources be used to make value that lasts? What do leaders, business owners, and regular people do to leave behind important legacies? Musa left behind more than gold when he died in 1337. He changed Mali, cities, schools, mosques, trade networks, and scholars all did well. Timbuktu and Gao were still symbols of Africa's intellectual and economic strength. The empire's name lived on in the minds of many generations. Historians, economists, and storytellers are still amazed by how rich he was and how smart his choices were hundreds of years later. His story makes us question how we think about money and power. In a world where people care more about their net worth and rankings than anything else, Musa reminds us that what you build is more important than what you own. The wealthiest individual in history did not exist for personal gain. He lived for his people, his culture, and the good things his money could do for the world. And that's why people still care about Mansa Musa's story. There is more to it than gold. It's about having a vision, a plan, being generous, and how knowledge lasts. It is about how one person can change societies and leave a mark that lasts for hundreds of years by using their money wisely. His legacy is a call to think about more than just yourself. It makes us think about how our choices, wealth, and leadership affect other people as well as ourselves. Mansa Musa. His life is a reminder that history remembers people who use their resources to build something bigger for future generations, communities, culture, and knowledge.